stood up and I stood up, and I was just taking a light, just panned around, and when I came over to the right-hand side, that's when I saw it. The reddest eyes you ever seen. I mean, like fire red when I hit them with that light. They were just like fire red. We both saw it at the same time when I pulled that light around. It was there like a count of 1, 2, 3, and it turned and dropped down.
This is the Cryptid Creatures Show. I am Brian, and with me as always, we're right over there is my co-host Todd. What's up, buddy?
Hello, Brian. What's happening over there with you today, my friend?
Oh, man. I just want to start the show off by giving a good shout out to our member.
Yes.
Shelby.
Hey, Shelby.
So,
thanks for being a member and listening.
Thank you for being loyal and sticking with us.
Absolutely.
We appreciate it.
Yes, we do. Yes, we do. And if you guys are interested in being a member, go check out our website, www.cryptidcreatures.net.
Yep.
Get more episodes and extra content. And
hop on board.
See our episodes and all kinds of other fun stuff. So
that's right.
Tonight's show, Brian, we're bringing Jim on. Jim has had a Bigfoot and a Dogman encounter.
Ooh, a double whammy. I like
whammy.
It.
So we're going to get Jim on and see what happened to him and what he can tell us about these scary events.
Right on.
All right. So here we go. You ready?
Yep. Let's get him.
Hello, Jim?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yep. Thanks for talking with us tonight.
Yeah. Glad to be here.
Yeah. Happy to have you. Thanks.
So you're down in Arkansas, right?
Yeah, that's correct. We're about... probably about 45 minutes south of Little Rock. We're right down what they call the Saline River bottoms, more or less. Not far from where I'm at. The Saline River runs pretty good. The bottoms kind of start within, say, about 4.5, 5 miles of our place. There's a small creek called White Oak Creek, and it comes onto my property. We got 80 acres. We moved out here about 2 years ago. And I had a clear cut, and the White Oak Creek comes in about 35 or 40 yards on us and makes a horseshoe and it goes into the creek on some other property. That leads to the Dogman thing. I'll tell you about it. But the Bigfoot thing happened in 2010. My son and another one of his buddies was on the back of their little small like Toyota truck. And the boy's mother and two more were in the cab. And it's a real small type vehicle, and it had the sliding back glass on it. If you know what I'm talking about, the back light would slide. You could slide it open. They were about 3.5, 4 miles from the house. At that time we lived on what's called Gravel Pit Road, and about 2 miles from the house on the left hand side going down Gravel Pit, you had Waste Management. Well, that's where they take all the dumps. It's got a mountain out there more or less where they've done it over the years. And they like to ride around those dirt roads past the Waste Management. The asphalt stopped, and you went in and it was dirt roads. And you go a little ways, and there was a road to the right, and then you go on down and another road off to the left. But they were going straight on it, and they would ride around and tell ghost stories in summertime. And they'd like to ride down there and turn around by the old cemetery. It's about another 4 miles on down Gravel Pit. And as they were going down Gravel Pit, they were driving kind of slow. And I just talked to my son to kind of go over it again about what had happened. And he said they were cruising along about like 35 or 40 miles an hour. They weren't going fast. And something big crossed the road in front of him, about 30, 35 feet. He said the best he could estimate. He's 30 years old now. Done been in Afghanistan, saw gunner, infantry. And boy, don't tell stories. Even back then, he didn't make up things. My son didn't. He just didn't lie. He didn't lie to me. But he went across the road in front of him about 30 to 35 feet. He said best he could estimate. And he said when he saw it, it kind of shocked him. And the other boy saw it was on the back with him. And those in the front saw it. And the headlights weren't that great. It was a little older model truck. But he said, Dad, I knew what it was. He said, I knew exactly what it was. And he said it crossed in front of him, made 3 steps, and it was from one side of 1, 2, 3, and it was off the road, and he could see it and hear it going through the bushes, going through the tall grass that's there. He said it sounded kind of like a freight train when it hit those young trees. It was just going. And he said that he could guesstimate right then it was right at 8 foot. He said it was thick, it was broad. I said, well, what was the shape of the head, son? He said, Dad, I just saw it from the side as it going. And he said the arms on it were massive. And I said, well, what about the hair on it? He said, well, it's kind of like, you know, it wasn't real long, but it's like medium, like about 3.5, 4 inches hanging on the side of his elbows, what he could see. And he said that it was kind of a lighter brown. I asked him about the color. He said it was kind of like a lighter brown. It wasn't dark. And he said it just kept moving. And he said him and the other boy was trying their best to get through that little window to get up in the cab. You know, I mean, they were scared. Teenagers, they were scared. And he said that they went on down and everybody was kind of shook. So they turned around, made another road back. And when they got home, it was talking about, he said, well, one of the boys in the front seat said, well, it was a guy had to be a guy in a big fur coat, you know, that was trying to dismiss it because why in the world would anybody be way out here in the woods running across the road in a fur coat? He said, you know, it wasn't a fur coat. He said, well, I guess it was a bear coat. Said it was bipedal and it was making humongous steps. There's no way that it could be a bear. So anyway, when he come in that night, he was shook. And he come in and I said, well, son, what's wrong with you? And he told me the story. He said, Dad, you're not going to believe this. I said, well, tell me. And he went to telling me. I said, well, okay. I said, we've had a little encounter with this down at deer camp or hunting camp that Jerry Waddles, his brother, was looking after for a rich, he's an anesthesiologist out of Boston, and his wife was a very high-ranked doctor, and they had 40 acres out there on a little old bayou where they pumped water in. And we'd had a little bit of something doing with them down there, like throwing acorns at us, throwing 3 at a time. So anyway, so I got the question about it, and so I called Jerry, and I said, Jerry, my riding partner. And I said, Coda, I told him what Coda had seen. He said, I said, man, let's ride down there and just check that out. And this is about like, he said, well, we'll get together in a few days. So about 4 days later, we got together, we saddled up the horses, and we went down there and we rode. And as we were riding, when we got off left the asphalt, got on the dirt road, we went probably 200 yards. And Jerry said, Jim, what's that down there by the road? And I looked up and I said, well, it kind of looks like a big post with a head on it. He said, no, he said, it moved. So by the time I looked up and looked at it, it took one step and was gone. It was standing on the edge of the road. And when he saw it, it was kind of facing him. When time I looked up, it had turned sideways to us. And I could see it take that step and then poof, it was gone. It just stepped off and then was gone. So I told him, I said, well, it's right here a little ways. And I said, we'll just stop and give it some time. So we stopped and drank some cold drink there a few minutes. And the road where we stopped, there was a little off way there, like just kind of went into the edge of the woods and it come back out on the road. So we decided to stop there. While we were sitting there, there was a little white Chevrolet truck come out of the road right across from us. Keep in mind, if you're going down gravel pit road, this road will be on the right. Be the first road on the right. So we seen that truck come out. We killed about 5-10 more minutes. We decided to ride on down. We rode on down there about where we saw it cross. And whether we got exactly in the same spot, I don't know, but we didn't see any tracks. We didn't see no tracks. We could see where it looked like deer path or something. You know, you couldn't really say it was made by a Bigfoot, but you could say it was a game trail, definitely. So we looked at it and kind of got off the edge of the weeds there a little bit, but the weeds had mashed down. It really couldn't tell a print, but you could tell that something flat went through there. So we looked around and said, well, let's head on back. So we headed back down the same way we came. And when we come back, keep in mind that as we were going, the first road to the right would be the last one on the left as we was leaving out. So we decided we was going to make a little ride the circle, they call it. So we got to that road and we took a left. We went down it probably 60 or 70 yards. And Jerry said, look at that. That could be a footprint. It looked like a big scuff mark on the road. And it was at an angle on the road, kind of angled to the right, like someone went across it at an angle. I said, well, I don't see it. And I rode up about another 4 foot and I looked down. I said, no, Jerry, there's your footprint right there. And I mean, it was like excitement, chills, and I don't know, like a rush went through me. I got off my horse, he got off of his, and we looked. And now I've looked and seen different things, but that toe was round. The big toe was round, and it was bigger than a silver dollar. I mean, it was bigger. That's the only thing I could compare it to, was bigger, rounder than a silver dollar. I put my boot down beside it. My boot measures 12 inches from the heel to the toe. And that thing was 4 inches longer than my boot. So we're talking a good 16 inches. It looked to be about 4.5, maybe 5 inches wide across where the ball of the foot would be. I sat there a minute and I got to thinking, we'd heard a little bit of noise out in the woods. We thought, there's a lot of deer out there. So I stood there and right where it crossed the road, you had an embankment, like when the county cuts the road through, and all these weren't county roads, but they were International Paper Company roads. Well, when they come to a little hill or mound, they just cut it on through it, and you got like about a 6.5, 7 foot embankment over to our left. Well, those footprints headed to that embankment, and they went over the top of it. There's another couple of scuff marks with one before, about 6 foot before you get to on the side of the embankment, and then one looked like it skimmed the top as it went over. I looked at it and I looked at him. I said, Jerry, I said, man, whatever made them footprints, I said, I think it's something pretty big, and you know what I'm talking about. He said, yeah. I said, I bet it's on the other side of the embankment. And I said, I don't think Roy just sat here. So I started getting on my horse. I had a big Palomino stud horse, and I got on him. He said, well, where are you going? I said, well, whatever made them scuff marks is on the other side of this embankment, and I am not about to sit here. If this stud horse takes off, I'm going with him. I said, I'm telling you that right now. I done got scared. I don't know, like the shakes. But when I went to get on my horse, my knees were weak. You know what I mean? Because when I saw that footprint, I knew. I mean, there was no doubt in my mind. This is the Bigfoot. And he's on the other side of that embankment, somewhere. Now, whether he was close or far off, I don't know. I couldn't see. But I got on my horse and I said, Jerry, let's go. I said, he said, well, what's wrong? I said, we don't know if this thing is, is wild. We don't know if this thing, allowed to slap us off these horses or what. I said, we need to go. I said, we've done seen what we want to see. I know Coda told the truth. I said, there's no doubt in my mind about it. I said, let's go. Well, what it amounts to is what I believe. I believe this was a sentry. And I think he was circling. And he left that part of the road, and I think was watching us as we went down. And when we turned around and come back, before we turned around and come back, he crossed the road below us and stayed in the woods, and then crossed back. When he seen which way we were coming, he crossed back over in front of us when he saw the road we was going to take. He was watching. He was like I say, a guard or a sentry, but he was watching us. So we got to figuring. I said, Jerry, I said, Mr. John Perry, he's passed on. He passed on about a year and a half ago. He was 86, and I asked Mr. John about it. I said, Mr. John, you were raised here. He said, yeah, Jim, I was. I said, you ever heard him talk with Bigfoot? He said, well, Jim, there's been talk of a wild man ever since I was a kid that lived down here on Gravel Pit Road. I said, okay. That's all I want to know. And he said, well, did you see one? And I didn't say much. And he went to kind of laughing. He said, don't many people talk about it either when they see him. So I knew right then this has been going on for, decades. So we got to thinking about it, and I told Jerry, I said, well, let's get on. I got some night vision. Let's plan on making a night ride, and let's just turn and on the first road coming in, when you get off the asphalt, the first road to the left, we run right almost parallel with the dump, and you could see it almost to the end of that road, and it kind of stopped, and it whittled down to like almost a 4-wheeler trail. He said, well, we'll try. We'll just go and look. Well, I told him, I said, I got to figuring and got to thinking. And I said, that one garbage truck picks up right there at the interstate. And right there at the interstate at Whitehall, you've got, like McDonald's, you've got Taco Bell, you got Popeye's Fried Chicken. You got a truck stop there that serves food 24/7 for the truckers. You got a Dairy Queen. And then you got a service station that sells fried food. Well, that dump truck, garbage truck, waste management truck, picks up, I think it was every Wednesday. When it went in there empty. When it come out, it had all the trash and the leftover foods and stuff that they would have, and they put it in them dumpsters, and they pick up like about 4 or 5 dumpsters there. Then it'd go out to waste management, and then they'd dump it. And I think their regulations were like 4 inches of dirt had to be over it before nightfall. And I believe with all my heart, these things are feeding out of that waste management. They know when them trucks is coming in, their sense of smell, I think, is so strong that they know right where to scratch around and dig to get that up. So I talked to one of the guys, and I talked to him, and I said, I want to ask you a question. I saw him in the dumpster. I said, you work for waste management, right? He said, yes, sir. I said, we all go out there in the mornings. I said, do you ever see any places for things that dug in the ground or, like scratched up in the ground there in areas? He said, well, yes, sir. Sometimes we got some spots out there that's pretty good size. They're not real deep, but, they're pretty good size where there's something scratched it up. He said, boss man told us he thought it might have been hogs or coyotes. Well, there's a lot of, when you ride out there, especially after dark, you can hear wild dogs and coyotes hollering, and there's probably coon, possum, and God knows what else are out there at that dump. But these things, I think, pilfer through there, and that's what they eat out. They feed out of it. That's what I believe. So we ride down through there, and as we come off the gravel pit dirt part of gravel pit road and make a left onto this road, we didn't go 25 or 30 yards. And the horses were alerted. I could feel the hair stand up on the back of my neck. And then Jerry looked over at me, and I said, the hair stand up on the back of my neck. Something was watching. He said, I was wondering if I was the only one that felt that. I said, no. I said, I feel it. I mean, you could just feel it like a wave coming at you, kind of like a sonic wave coming toward you. You could feel it. They were there. I mean, you knew something was watching you. The horses throwed their ears to the left, ears went up, eyes got line of wide, and they was walking with their heads tilted to the left. I was on the left, Jerry was on the right of me, and they watched the whole time as we was easing down that road. And we couldn't push them fast. They didn't want to go fast. Like they didn't want to go deeper down that road. They didn't want to go further down the road. Time we got there to where we could see part of the dump, we couldn't see actually up on the top to where they would be, actually pilfering at the time, because it was a big mountain of this stuff. I'm talking about 100 feet high mountain out there, and then it drops down to a little lower spot to where they keep filling in, and we couldn't see above that levee, above that ridge to where they might be. We had that feeling as we started. We got down to where we couldn't look. We turned around, couldn't see anymore. I said, well, let's go. We turned around, started coming back. And that's when we could hear the, limbs kind of breaking on the trees. It come to mind about like a little old 1 inch or 2 inch limb, maybe half rotted or half dried on the pine trees. The lower limbs just popping, just breaking about every. We make about 8 or 10 steps and you hear it pop and break. And you can hear stuff kind of walking. Whereas before going in, we didn't hear that. But we definitely heard it when we came out. And I know what my son saw was it. I know what a Bigfoot, and I know what we saw standing on the side of the road with one. But what clinched it for me was that footprint. About all the feelings that I had when I saw that footprint, I knew right then. It was evident to me these things are here. They're close. They don't really care about you seeing them or what. But I think that footprint was left on purpose. I think it was meant for us to see it. And like I said, a Chevrolet truck had just come down that road. So he had to do it in front of us. If not, that print and that dust would have been wiped out. It wouldn't have been there. So logically thinking, that tells you that thing had crossed back over in front of us when it saw what direction we were going, and just stayed just out of sight around the curve. I believe it crossed over. So we come around a little curve, and then that's where we found the prints.
Jim, what year was this? Did this happen?
This was 2000 into the summer of 2009. It was going into 2010. Did
you get a picture? Or did you cast that print?
No, you couldn't have cast it. It was in the in the dust, and like right on on the center of that edge of the road. Like you got
Yeah, the real
your
soft
dust to build up. Yes, it was about like maybe less than a half an inch deep imprint into that dust.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
If it had been closer to the center of the road, it wouldn't have showed up at all because the dust was blown to the edge of the road. Like when the vehicles go by, it was in that, dust part. And, but I was shook. I mean, people seeing it wasn't that bad at that far distance off, but knowing that thing had just crossed in front of us, that's when I started getting weak kneed. And, I don't understand people that say, they see these prints and all this other stuff and they don't believe, but they're there, they're real. And whether they're good or bad, I don't know. I had an encounter with that one out there at camp that was good. They called her Heidi because it was a female. And his nephew, John's nephew, Jerry's boy, saw it. And it was about 35 foot out in front of the camp house. This camp house had when I was telling you, he was an overseer for the doctor and the anesthesiologist. The anesthesiologist was the guy that come down, married to the doctor, came down, and that was his hunting camp. And anyway, John was overseer of it. And then there was times that he would stay out there year round and keep everything going. And so they named her Heidi because she would hide behind the trees and ease out. Well, Jason, Jerry's son, same riding partner, he thought they were kidding. He didn't believe it for anything in the world. So he was out there and he was planning on going squirrel hunting the next morning with his Uncle John, which is Jerry's brother. And Jason got talking about it, and John said, "Well, I don't know how you can help but believe." And Jason said, "All you and Dad is just pulling my leg." So about 10 minutes later, John said, "Jason, come here." And he went there and he opened the front door and took him to the edge of the porch. He said, "Look at there." And Jason was looking. He said, you could see the shoulders on it on each side of the big oak tree. And the oak tree was about 3.5 foot around or better. And he said it would lean out to the left and look and then ease back. And he said then it leaves out to the right and it ease back. So Jason froze. And John was afraid it was going to scare him to death. So John had to grab him by the arm and say, "Come on, Jason." And he said, Jason just like he was stuck to the porch. And he got him snapped around and got him snapped out and carried him inside. And Jason was talking about him, said, "They are real, John, they are real." He said, "It's not going to come in here and get us." John laughed at him. He said, "No, it's been here for years. I've been seeing it for years." And he said, it's not going to hurt you. And to this day, I asked Jason about it and talked with him, and the boy was truthful. And he said, "Jim, I'm going to tell you, I am not going back out there. I won't ever go back out there." And he loved to go out there and squirrel hunt. There's a lot of squirrels up and down that little Bible thing. And he said, "I'll never go back." He said, "I will never go back." He said it was massive. Before that, I went out there with Jerry and we was camping out there. And so he said, "Well, it's going to come up." He said, "It's come up here several times when I've been here." And he said it was bad about 2 o'clock in the morning to take a stick. And on the outside of that cabin, it had boards about 2 inches wide running up and down on the seams where they had the boards, all wooden cypress boards. And he said it would run that stick across them boards, and you could hear it. Well, he had a big bulldog, American bulldog named Harley, and he went with us. So we sat around out there and we had a fire out front and we were sipping on a few beers and shooting a breeze. And a few minutes we heard something hit the back door. Well, keep in mind, this cabin has got a porch all the way around, but only the front porch and the back porch is covered. And it's a good 8.5 foot high. And he said, it throwed what sounded like 3 acorns up against the back door. And everything would be in threes. The 3 acorns, 3 pine cones, it's all in threes. Well, Jerry was sitting there, and I looked at him. I said, "Well, I guess the squirrels are throwing acorns under the back porch because you'd have to throw it up under there because it's bouncing off the door." And he said, "Yeah." He said, he had his pistol on the back of his chair, and I had my 44 Magnum on the back of my chair. And he said, "Well, we need to put our guns inside." I said, "Not mine." "Oh, wait a minute, not mine." And he said, "Yeah, we need to." So I said, "Well, go ahead." Well, nothing else happened, and we went in about 10:30, 11 o'clock. Inside the cabin, there was two nice little beds there, one about 4 foot between them. Well, the bed I was sleeping in, the head of it was against the wall. There was a window to the left of me, about 2.5, 3 foot to the left of me. And to the left of me. No, to the right of me, because there was a window at my feet. Because where the window was at my feet, I had my feet to the left of me. I had my feet as far to the right as I could go, and my head over to the left as far as it go, because that window was there. And I didn't do that until I heard the stick dragging across the front of the cabin wall, which would be right about where our heads would be. Our heads would be up against the wall facing the front of the cabin. And it knew exactly where our heads was at. It knew just exactly where. So I hollered and I said, Gary, man, I said, something's out there on the porch. Something's dragging a limb across the porch or something. Well, he was snoring and the bulldog was snoring. And I said, Jerry, listen. He said, well, it's just Heidi. And he went on back to sleep. But it was dragging that thing right across the level where our heads were. And across them things, click, 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 click. And that went on for about 45 minutes. And sometimes it started all the way down to the other end and come across. But let me tell you, when that thing stepped up on that porch and walked from one end of that porch to the other, it jarred the whole building. I mean, it was just like an elephant walking across it. It just jarred. You could see the window panes, to the moonlight, you could see the window panes jar actually wiggling. I tried to get him up again. He wouldn't get up. And, but that one also, whenever John was there, he would take his girlfriend fishing. Well, they would have a boat that they kept tied right there at the back of the cabin. He would go out there every time she come down. He'd go out there. The boat would be loose. Somebody, and he'd have to throw a rope with a thing he had tied on the end of it and pull it back. It just drift right across that Bible thing there, which probably was about 40, 50 foot wide. So he'd pull it back. Well, they went fishing that morning and came in late that evening. Well, the next morning when they got up, the rod and reel that she had and the cane pole that she was holding was broken. Just snapped in two different places. John's wouldn't mess with. So Heidi was jealous. Heidi didn't want no woman out there. That's what John told me. He said, she just don't want women out here. He said, I don't know why. But he said she just didn't. And then the next morning, the boat was untied again. That's when he told his girlfriend, he said, we don't need to fish today. So he got the boat back late that evening. Heidi come up, and the girlfriend got a glimpse of her through the window, and that was it. Girlfriend was gone. He made John pack up and take her home. I carried my boy, Dakota, and my wife, Janice. We went out there and spent the night. Janice was curious. Boy, she wanted to know about this Bigfoot thing. She'd heard, us talking about it and what was going on. And that made it just more interesting to her. Well, we had to park our vehicles and drive a four-wheeler in because it was farmland all around this 40 acres that this doctor, anesthesiologist, and his doctor wife owned. And it was a little muddy, so you really couldn't get in there with a regular vehicle. So we'd left something in the van, and it was probably about not quite a half a mile over there to the gates to where we had to go. So I told you, yes, we're here, you in Dakota, right over and get this, stuff we'd left, and bring back. I said, Janice and I'll wait here.
You're listening to the Cryptid Creatures Show with Brian and Todd. If you're enjoying the show or would like to submit an encounter, visit our website at www.cryptidcreatures.net, or you can email us at info@cryptidcreatures.co. Now back to the show.
It sounded like somebody had a cement block on a rope, and they was dropping it in that water. Kabloosh, bloosh, kabloosh. And I don't know if it was hitting it with its fist or if it was had a stick or what, but it couldn't have been a stick. It had to have been like a big rock, or like I said, it made a kabloosh sound. And it did it 3 times. And the next time it did it 4 times. And Janice said, I said, that's Heidi, Janice. I said, that's who it is. That's Heidi. She said, it sounds like deer hitting the water. I said, it's not deer hitting the water. So I'm telling you what it is. So when Jerry and him got back and pulled up in Dakota, it done it 3 more times. Jerry heard it. He looked at me and he said, how many times has it done it so far? And I told him, I said, well, 7 times. It did it 3 the first and 4 the next. He said, that's Heidi. Well, that was enough for Janice. She was ready to go in the house. So we built a fire, talked a little bit. She was ready to go in the house, so in the cabin. So we decided we'd go in the cabin and talk a while. And but they're real, and it don't take a little bit to make a believer out of you if you look at the truth and look at the science and believe what you're looking at. Since I've got into this, started really getting into it, I noticed that since the first encounters that we had over there at the cabin, it just seemed like there's more. There's always one more. And I think, in my belief, that telepathically, these things can communicate, and I believe they can communicate over like 20 or 30 miles. I think they can actually send thoughts or pictures or communicate over a distance. That's my belief, because you just don't accidentally have one encounter and then another one, or then another one. That one that crossed the road that night in front of Dakota and them, he wanted them to see him. He wanted him to see him. And I kind of picture him, with that foot being 16 inches, I kind of figure him to be kind of like an adolescent, like, 18, 19 years old, somewhere along there, maybe 20. And I think he got a kick out of running out in front of them cars, because there wasn't another car on the road. He could have waited until it went by. No deer crossed in front of him, no rabbits or any type of game. He did that because he wanted them to see him. For what reason, I don't know. But he absolutely wanted them to know he was there. And whether that was telling them, hey, look at me, I'm the streak or something, or, hey, look here, you on my territory, I'm going to scare you and you're going to leave, one of the two.
I'm sure. I'm sure it was a warning.
Yeah, I'm thinking it was too, and trying to scare them. And, but it just seems like when you have, I talked to several people, it seems like when you have one encounter, sooner or later there's another one. And the latest one I've had was March, end of March, 1st of April last year. We, like I said, we moved out here on 80 acres at Grapevine. We had the land clear cut. I cleared off 22 acres. We ordered a metal home, a metal building stamped out like a home. Well, we got everything up and going, and I still hadn't built my barn, and had it under fence. Well, we're almost in the center of this 80 acres. Well, a friend of mine and his girlfriend for many years came over, and he'd been kind of helping me on the house and stuff. And I had a big iron table outside with 4 chairs and all. We'd barbecued and cooked some stuff up, and early in the evening we were just before dark. We'd done sat down at the table and ate and everything, and so he walked on there. We were laughing and joking and going on. And about 10:30, Bobby told us, "Well, we need to get in because we need to hurry up and get in, check on the dogs and stuff." So when we got up to leave, I had a spotlight I always kept on the table, but I mainly used it, sometimes check the grill, stuff like that, if I was still cooking a little bit after dark. And so Bobby stood up, and he was on the far left, and my wife had her back kind of to the road here in front of the house, and then I was to the right of Bobby's girlfriend, and she stood up and I stood up, and I was just taking a light, just panning around. I said, well, we got rabbits out here a lot. And I panned around, and when I came over to the right-hand side, there was 3 cedar trees, small cedar trees, and then like an old, about a 9.5, 10-foot tall peach tree, and the limbs were kind of, they kind of sparsely out on it. And as I turned the light around, that's when I saw it. The reddest eyes you ever seen. I mean, like fire red when I hit them with that light. They were just like fire red. And then I said, by the time I said, whoa, she said, whoa, same time. We both saw it at the same time when I pulled that light around. And it was there like the count of 1, 2, 3, 4, and it turned and dropped down. And I lost it. I lost sight of it after that. It just dropped down and was gone. Well, I asked her, what do you think it was? I know what I saw, but I think she had a more straight-on vision at it because I was to her right. She had a little more straight-on vision at looking at it than I did. And we both knew. We saw the red eyes. We knew there was no doubt about that. And I said, well, what did that look like to you, Melissa? She said, well, it looked like 2 teenage boys standing together hot boxing a cigarette. That's how bright I read them eyes were, but they were big, as big around as a silver dollar or bigger. They were just big from where we were at. And I stepped it off the next day. We were talking about 35 yards. And I measured off on the tree about where it was at, and I come up with 8 foot or a little higher. Well, I asked her, I said, what did it look like to you, Melissa? You got maybe a better look at it. She said, Jim, I believe it was demonic. I believe it was a demon. Well, I didn't say much. I said, okay. I asked her about a month later about it. She said, I don't know. You're on that Saline River bottom. There's all kind of stuff goes down through there. She said, I believe it was a demon. I said, okay. I talked to her one more time about 2 months ago and asked her, and she said the same thing. But she won't talk about it more than that. It scared her that bad. She got a little better look at it, but what I saw of it, it wasn't a Bigfoot. This thing had ears that come up to the side of it, kind of like just about even with the center of the forehead, not center of the forehead, but just past the eye coming up. And I could see the point on the ear. And as it turned, I could get a light glimpse of what looked like a muzzle on it. It wasn't a Bigfoot. It wasn't what we'd seen down there by the road. And it certainly wasn't, that was a dog, man. There's no doubt in my mind about it. It turned, dropped down on all fours, and scooted on out.
Did you get a chance to get out there the next day and look for prints or anything?
Yeah, I did. I got out there and looked the next day. And all I could find, because it knocked a lot of the weeds down, I could find round prints, kind of like a dog, but you really couldn't make out the full toes or stuff like that on it. But it was heavy because even where the weeds, little old dog weeds and stuff was broke over where it was standing, you could still see impression, but you couldn't like cast it because there was too much trash, like leaves and stuff like that on the ground. But these old dog pedals, I don't know if they are or not, but they get pretty high. But when they die, they're like a twig, they snap real easy and all. And those were stomped down around there, and it was round. And I'm gonna say probably from one side to the other was probably 5, maybe 5.5 inches if you go from one side of it to the other. Yeah, about 5 inches or a little under, going from one side of that round print to the other. And it had to be pretty heavy to make an indentation in the ground like that. So last week, this has been last year, last Wednesday, me and Bobby was talking about it out there. It was about 7:30. And I said, well, Bobby, I know she don't talk about it. I said, do you remember? I was kind of like reenacting it with him. I said, remember I was right here and right there. And I said, I shined the light around. I had my flashlight, big light, and I shined it around again, and I said, he said, yeah. He said, she saw more than what she's telling you, Jim, but she just won't talk about it. He said, it scared her. He said she was scared that night on the way home and after we got home. Well, my porch is a cement porch. It's 10 foot wide and 50 foot long. Cement porch, front and back. So we started walking away from the table there. And when we got down to the end of the porch and started to turn left for him to get in his truck, we heard the howl. It started off low, like if something had its head down, and then picked right on up to a big, deep howl going a higher pitch. It was stronger. I mean, way stronger than any coyote I've ever heard, because we've had them out here, and way stronger than any hound dog I ever heard. It was just deep. I mean, I don't know how to explain it, but it was just like a real long howl. I said, Bobby, pardon my French. I said, Bobby, that's that bastard right there. That's it. He said, I ain't never heard nothing like that. I've never heard nothing like that. Well, I'm 550. My driveway is 550 yards long. And I said, well, I'm going to watch you till you get down to the end of the driveway and you get on 21 on the pavement. But I knew what it was. I mean, I knew, because I'm researching stuff. I've listened to different howls and I've listened to different calls and stuff. And this was no Bigfoot. This was a dog man. I came in, I said, Janice, Bobby came in before we left. I said, Bobby came in. I said, Janice, you're not going to guess what I just heard. And I told her, she said, I heard that earlier this afternoon around 2:30. And she said, I knew it wasn't a dog. I said, well, why don't you tell me about it? She said, well, I just forgot some. I don't mention it to you. But she said it was a little further away in the woods straight across from us. And this was what she detailed. This thing was further back down the wood lines, more in front of the house, and was, I mean, it just, I don't know, it just seemed cold. It'd make the hair stand up on the back of your head to hear it. And I like I said, I've listened. I started researching in on dog men quite a bit, and different howls and stuff. And I don't think it was like an older one, because I've heard the older howls, how they kind of gravelly like when they start off. This thing wasn't gravelly. It started off just as plain and deep and of a voice, and then just went straight up into a higher pitch, and even the higher pitch was still deep, if you know what I mean. And it lasted, let's see, like a good 8 to 10 seconds. That howl lasted, and I've never heard a coon dog or anything that low and that deep and all the whole time. I've never heard that since we've been out here. Now we've got bobcat, and we got coyotes, and we've had a black panther go through out here. I got a picture off a trail cam of a mountain lion 5 miles from here. A guy got off his trail cam. I think they're nomadic. I think they got a certain time of the year they come through. I know Bobby said that when him and Kyle Cooper's the electrician, Bobby was doing the carpenter work out here, and sometimes they'd work out here at 11, 12 o'clock, and they said they hear people mumbling. He said they hear people mumbling. They couldn't make out what they were saying. He said, we actually heard it, and they talked to me about this 6 or 7 times. I said, well, I would imagine it's Bigfoot. I said, if you couldn't make out what they were saying, he said, well, they was mumbling, but you could not make it out. And he said, when we go out to look, there wouldn't be nothing. So all these things are real. And that's what I say, when you have one encounter, it seems like, to me, they telepathically tell one another, hey, we just scared the shit out of old Jim, and he's moved out here. So, y'all go on by and see him and throw a little more pride into him, or, or something. I don't know.
Yeah.
But, maybe.
But it may be.
Maybe they thought,
the
Bigfoot aren't working. Let's throw a dog man at him and see what happens.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I think so. But that was definitely a dog man. But I mean, the encounters just go to happening. I mean, it's just like, well, you have one encounter and then that's it. But it's not. It seemed like, I don't know if it's your aura that attracts them. I don't know. I do think though that they tell one another, hey, this guy's seen one or two of us. I mean, you can ease on up there close, and maybe he'll give you a handout. I don't know, but I do know they're real, and anybody that disputes it, well, that's their prerogative. That's their opinion.
Yeah.
But you go out in the woods, you better carry some protection, and you better have your head on a swivel, especially with these dog men. I don't go out in the woods hardly.
Which one of those creatures were more scary to you?
The dog man. And I think that's because everything that I've been able to research on them, they're unpredictable. I just think that, what gets me, I don't know how long that thing was standing out there staring at us. That's the scary part about it. How long was that thing standing there watching us? I mean, nobody knows, and what was it doing watching it? Well, was it just surveillance, or just, heard our talking, or was it smell of the food that we had cooked? Or, was it just trying to scope us out?
Probably a little bit of all that. Probably piqued his curiosity and wondered what you were doing in his territory.
Well, I jumped in. I've got had 4 security cameras up. Only one of them's working. One of them went bad and it's brand new. But I went ahead and put those up, and I've got a monitor in my bedroom now. And just before I put them up, something was, and this howler came in. Something was rubbing up against the side of my barn, and I think I talked to the head over the game wards, and he said that we had bear reported around in here, and I kind of think that's what that was. But it was scraping the side of the wall. I think it's wrong to shoot at one of these things unless they're charging you or your life's in danger. Most people don't have a high-powered handgun. I've heard folks say, well, if I you had a shot at me, well, no. You're talking about something that weighs, like 300 or 400 pounds, right at 8 foot, and then you're talking about a Bigfoot, you're talking about 9, sometimes 10 foot, maybe 800-900 pounds, and you're going to shoot it.
Yeah, unless you're packing an elephant gun.
Unless you're, as long as it's going this way and I'm going mine, as long as if it wants to mill around out here, fine. If it goes to killing I've got goats and I've got cattle out here, and I've got horses, and wife raises quail, and as long as it don't bother none of my stuff, I'm not going to bother it. But people need to be safe when they go in the woods. Like I said, since this dog man deal, I don't, on this 80 acres behind me down here, that's north of me, I don't go down in there. We used to ride down and ride the 4-wheeler around. I don't go down there. I'm not going down there. If I do, it'll be after the end of April. I just feel like, I'll tell you, I'm scared. I don't want to go down there. I'm 71 years old. I never blame you. I never had anything keep me out of the woods like that. But yeah, this thing, I'm not going in the woods no time soon. I'm not riding my horse back down there anymore either. I mean, I was right out here on the roads or something. But that thing, yeah, it scared me. Those eyes, I mean, I'll never get that out. Those eyes burn a line in my brain that'll be there for the rest of my life. I mean, they were just fiery red, almost like looking into a red hot coal or something. And they were wide apart too. So that thing was probably massive, more than what I can imagine in my mind. I didn't get to see the full size of it or anything, but I mean, as far as the width and all, I know it was thick. The top part of it was thick, but I couldn't tell you what from the waist down was. I couldn't tell. The weeds were that high. But I do know, as it watched, it looked at us and handled all that light it could handle. It slowly turned to the right, and then I know it dropped down. I could see the silhouette drop down. So it dropped down on all fours and left, or got on his belly and slid out, whatever. You could see a path where it made through those weeds and stuff as it went. But as far as actually casting a track on it, I couldn't do that. But I could tell it had a round ball type foot. And, kind of like I think kind of like he took a softball and cut it in half or something and pressed it down, or something like that. But yes, sir, they're real. And, I won't be going in these woods back down here no time soon. I just, these people that, you can't really talk about it with people because they think you're a nut. I mean, I wonder what he's smoking, which I don't, but, they get that kind of deal going and I've shared it with one neighbor and he believes me. And I think it's because he knows something. He's seen something tracks around his, deer stand. He went in and, disked it and, planted him food plot and all. And I think those deer started coming in and whatever it was came in, made a print similar to that. And, except he could see little toe and little claw marks on the end. But, right after you disc it and planted and he had his feeder out, his, flue pot hadn't come up yet, but he had a corn feeder out. And, he said that, he's seen something like those too. And I told him, I said, Paul, he's got a stepdaughter that's about like 11 or 12. I said, whatever you do, in God's name, don't let that baby get on a stand by herself. Do not let her get on a stand by herself. He said, oh, Jim, I'm not. I said, well, I'm just telling you. I said, these things are real. And I said, I know they are. And he believed me. And he's on a stand with her every time they go, they go out deer hunt or whatever. So he was been talking about, well, she's old enough. I can put her on her stand and, have the phone with her, have the walkie-talkie. But I said, just don't do that. Don't do that. And it just seems funny. You have one encounter and then here comes another one and here comes another one. And it's like, this dog man thing don't fit in with the Bigfoot. I don't understand that. I kind of, what I've tried to research, I found they're kind of like enemies. And in some cases they say they hunt with the Bigfoot, but I believe they're enemies in a way, but I think this dog man was one just passing through or whatever. And he come through a little earlier this year and went to howling. And people say they smell something. We didn't smell anything. Of course, the wind was not, it was blowing from back of us towards him. So, or it, whatever. But the wind was blowing towards it. So we didn't smell anything. We didn't smell any odor or anything, like nothing dead or anything like that. But I just, I don't know. I know those eyes were wide apart and I know they were big around. And, some people say they give off like a yellow glow, but that wasn't the case here. They were red. I mean, just like coals in a fire, kind of red. And they just kind of gleamed up whenever that light hit them.
In our past dogmen encounters, several of them said they had yellow eyes. But I think what you were seeing were just like, eye shine, kind of like you do with Bigfoot, stuff like that. Have you ever seen alligators in a pond at night and you can see their reds? Oh, yeah. Their eyes look red. Have you guys ever seen that before?
Mm-hmm. Oh, yeah.
I think it's the same kind of concept. I think it's that they have eye shine that causes their eyes to appear red.
If the light hadn't hit it, you wouldn't have seen you wouldn't know he was there. It wasn't like they just glow all the time. But that light set them off. Mm-hmm. And I think it may have something to do with the power of the light, which this was pretty good powered. And maybe, the angle that the light hits them, maybe. But I've thought what few people I've talked to, well, man, most of them say they're like a yellow something. No, that wasn't the case here. And this thing had ears and a muzzle like a dog, like a German Shepherd, but wider. And I said, from the left-hand side, on the left-hand side, I could see that, silhouette pretty much. I said, no, it had a muzzle and it had ears and they were pointed. The rest of it, I don't know if it had a tail or not. Like I said, I couldn't see it from the waist down, but it was smooth. And its transition from when it turned and then kind of and went down, it was just as smooth or like a glide. But those eyes, we wouldn't never know it's there if I hadn't thrown the light over there. And you could have seen it, the eyes glowing, if they just naturally glowed or something. But you didn't see it till I put that spotlight on it. And when I did, boy, they did come alive. And it seemed like to me they kind of got brighter as the light stayed on it. They started off like a real they were deep red, but they started off kind of like a little duller, but that light stayed on it. Seemed like they widened out a little bit and got fiery, got more fiery red to it, deeper red. You never knew that thing was out there if the light hadn't hit it in the eyes. But it just so happened I brought it up a little higher when I come around, and we get it right in the eyes. Never known it was there, and if I'd never known it was there, I wouldn't be scared like I am when I go out at night. I'm 71 years old.
I don't blame you.
I don't even want to go out in my barn at night. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I don't blame you.
I had heard one encounter where the guy said, "Hey, this guy was having problems. He had a German Shepherd. He said, just trust your dog." Well, since then, I've got 3 Australian Shepherds, and I got a female, been spaded, German Shepherd, full-blooded. And one of those in the house every night. I don't usually let a dog in the house. I run my dogs, stay outside, whatever. And, but I've been letting one or the other of them in every night. And the least little sound, they alert. And these Aussies, Australian Shepherds especially, they're real keen on what's going on and what's with the family and odd noises and sounds. And that one, the oldest there, Matu, boy, he sounds like, he just goes, whoo, whoo, whoo. You gonna get up. There's something going on. And I've had 2 coons to tie up on the front porch fighting over some dog food I'd left out one time, and he was right on it, buddy.
Well, if you get out there and see anything else or run into, hopefully you don't, but if you run into another dog man or see a Bigfoot, reach out to us and let us know what's going on.
Yeah, for sure. Keep us in mind.
Well, I'll just be honest with you, guys. I hope I don't.
All right.
No, I don't blame
you. I hope I don't. Oh, yeah. I enjoy talking with y'all, and I wish you all the best. And
you too, bud.
Go into the
Thank
woods.
you.
Keep your head on a swivel.
Yeah, we tell everybody that all the time. Yeah.
All right, Jim. You take care, bud.
All right, Jim. We appreciate it.
You take care too, and enjoy talking with y'all.
You too, bud. Thank you.
Same here.
It's one thing seeing a Bigfoot, obviously, but seeing a dog man would be terrifying.
Seeing both of them, crazy.
Yeah, the dude bought 80 acres and he doesn't even want to go on it.
I don't blame him. You blame him? I wouldn't want to go out there either.
If
I saw the Bigfoot, that'd be one thing. But man, there's a dog man out there.
Yeah, it makes you wonder.
Well, yeah, there's something to be said for staying in the house.
Yeah. Hey, I want to give a shout out to our listeners. Thanks for you guys for supporting the show and listening. We appreciate it. And I want to give a shout out to our guests. If it wasn't for the guests and the listeners, we wouldn't be here. So to all you guys, we appreciate it. So just want to say that.
We might be doing it, but we wouldn't have any listeners.
That's right.
we appreciate all you guys, man. This has been an awesome ride. We've been having fun, and hopefully we'll just have more and more fun as we go.
Absolutely. We thank you very much. Brian, I thank you for hanging out with me and doing this with me, my friend.
Yeah, man. Always fun.
All right. Let's not waste any more time. Let's get out of here.
Yep. See ya.